Alright, so I've made some progress since my last video. The last vid just showed some simple status messages in response to inputs. Now I've added a couple more switches on my breadboard so I can emulate the rest of my inputs, as well as this wire right here emulates ignition status, whether on or off. And a couple buttons I added in so I can toggle my displays, and an unused chip here as of yet that's an opto isolator, so I can take ignition pulse readings from my coil and get an RPM reading. Now let's check out some of the stuff I've done here. Plug back in, and the same boot up screen there, so I'm going to do its thing. I'm going to start my serial monitor over here so I can show you something in a second. Now it rebooted because I started the monitor, and then it goes to my idle screen now. I didn't have this before. I need a real-time chip still so I can program in a persistent time display. And this is just kind of a placeholder for where that information will go. But this is the first and primary idle screen. And then using these buttons I can switch. Next one will be outside temperature. Now my display is not working here. I'm not sure where the link is breaking, but on my diagnostic readout I do have a temperature reading. You'll also notice I have a menu page, so it was helping me diagnose some programming bugs before, but some of the relevant info I can read from a serial output. And I also have a voltage meter, and this is working as well. I can demo that right now with my little battery pack. So I have this hooked up through a voltage divider circuit, and using some internet calculators I figured out what resistors I need to safely handle about 20 volts, and that should be plenty. I don't think I'll have any voltage spikes above that, even if my voltage regulator fails in the car. But it handles up to 20 volts, and then some programming and math changes that back into a reading that resembles what it actually is. That's pretty neat. Oops, wrong button. Yeah, and the buttons go forward and backward, so I can toggle either way in my displays. And here's where the engine RPM will go once I have that circuit all finished and programmed and hooked up. Now, you saw most of my warnings already. You saw the door open. You saw the low oil pressure. I finished the generator output, and both door and generator output, if any of those are on, the low oil pressure will always take priority, because that's kind of important, especially after I get my nice engine in there. Got brake failure hooked up from the brake failure circuit on the car. That would normally just trigger a small light on the dash of a stock Volkswagen. And the last switch here emulates headlight input, so if I'm driving and I got my headlights turned on, nothing really happens from that except when I go to turn the car off. And then if I open my door, I'll get a external lights on reminder instead of open door messages. And that won't clear until I turn the headlights off, which will be helpful because I always drain my battery in that car. And let's go back to ignition on. The last warning alert mentioning before, if my voltage regulator or something should fail on the electrical system and there's a surge, I can't really, hold on, there we go, stop, battery voltage high. And like how that headlight won't clear until you turn the lights off, battery voltage meter won't clear until you turn the ignition off. So that's it. Got to program the start routine and the clock, and the software will be pretty much done at that point, and just debugging. I got to figure out a couple bugs when the status messages switch. Sometimes there's some bugs that I've noted, so I'm going to go through my programming and figure that out. But that's about it. So my VW display is becoming a reality much faster than I anticipated, so I'm happy about that.